It was a quiet night, the kind of quiet that gently wraps itself around everything, soft and slow, like the hush that comes just after the world exhales. Above the hills, the moon was full, silver and still, and the stars hung lazily in the sky, flickering like they had all the time in the universe to just be. Underneath that moon, at the edge of a small hill blanketed in cool grass, a young Eevee lay nestled at the roots of an ancient tree. Its fur blended into the shadows, but the soft glow of moonlight gave it a faint shimmer, like the edges of a dream still forming. The tree stretched high above, its branches lazily swaying in the night breeze, whispering gentle songs to no one in particular. There was something about this place, this exact spot beneath this exact moon, that made the air feel thick with stillness, not silence, but presence. Eevee had been walking for a long time, not toward anything specific, just walking. Sometimes, when it couldn't sleep, the only thing that helped was moving under the stars, letting the soft crunch of grass underfoot guide it to somewhere new. Tonight, though, it had walked far enough. The tree, tall and wise, felt like a place where journeys paused, where the world stood still for a while. With a slow, contented sigh, Eevee circled once, twice, then curled tightly into a soft ball beside the wide, twisted roots. The ground was cool but comforting. The breeze carried the faintest scent of sweet berries and moss, though there were no berries nearby, just the illusion of them perhaps, brought on by memory or something deeper. Its eyes blinked slowly, once, then again. The moonlight filtered through the leaves above, scattering soft patterns on the ground that swayed gently with the wind. And as Eevee's breathing began to slow, the world around it seemed to slow too. It wasn't asleep. Not yet. But the boundaries between waking and dreaming had begun to blur, and in that space in between, something began to shift. The grass shimmered faintly, as though it had soaked up the moonlight and was now releasing it in a silent glow. The air became heavier, but not in a burdensome way. It was the kind of weight you feel just before sleep, when everything starts to float and sink at the same time. The tree's roots, once hard and gnarled, seemed softer now, like the arms of a friend or a cradle made of earth and time. A single leaf drifted down from the highest branch. Eevee watched it fall, slow and deliberate, turning gently as it passed through the air. When it landed, it didn't rest on the ground. It hovered just above it, glowing softly, pulsing like a quiet heartbeat. Eevee blinked once more. The leaf looked inviting. When it reached out with one paw to touch it, the air around the leaf rippled like the surface of a pond disturbed by a drop of rain. There was no sound, only a feeling. A soft hum that wrapped around Eevee's chest and made its fur stand on end. And then, as easily and silently as a curtain being drawn open, the world changed. The tree behind Eevee was no longer just a tree. Its bark shimmered with faint patterns, ancient and shifting, like the memories of something older than time. The roots beneath became wide, glowing paths that reached out in every direction, stretching into a forest that hadn't been there a moment ago. The branches above twisted into arches, forming a vaulted canopy that sparkled like the night sky itself. Eevee stood slowly, glancing around. The tree was still there, but different. More alive, more awake. So was everything else. A soft voice, neither loud nor sudden, but ever present, like a thought you've always known, drifted into the space. "Welcome, little one." Eevee's ears perked slightly, but it didn't feel alarmed. The voice wasn't coming from any direction. It simply was, like the wind, or warmth, or sleep itself. "You are not asleep, not fully," the voice said, with calm patience. "But your heart is open, and your mind is ready. You've stepped into the dream between worlds." Eevee took a cautious step forward, its paws making no sound on the soft, glowing grass. The forest around it was like no forest it had ever seen. The trees were tall and slender, their trunks made of crystal that sang when the wind passed through them. Soft chimes echoed faintly in the distance, not in melody, but in feeling. Each note carried a thought, a memory, a comfort. "This place," the voice continued, "is made from possibility, from the moments that live between breaths, between thoughts. between dreams. It does not ask questions. It offers paths. Eevee walked slowly, gaze drifting upward to the glowing canopy. Each tree reflected a different color: soft pinks, shimmering blues, warm golds. The ground sparkled with dust that felt like starlight fallen from above. As it moved, its reflection appeared in the crystal bark around it, but each image was slightly different. In one reflection, Eevee's fur shimmered blue like water. In another, it sparked like flame. In yet another, it was covered in soft green moss, blending seamlessly into the forest. Eevee tilted its head. The reflections didn't feel like other versions of itself. They felt like parts, possibilities, dreams not yet dreamed. "These are the paths within you," the voice whispered gently. "Not the paths you must walk. Simply the ones you carry, quietly, without even knowing." Eevee paused, watching as one reflection shimmered into another. It didn't feel the need to choose. The forest wasn't asking anything of it. There were no signs, no roads, no deadlines. Only space, time, calm. The deeper it walked into the forest, the quieter everything became. Not silent, but restful. The kind of quiet that exists only in early dawns or just before snow falls. And with each step, Eevee felt a weight in its chest slowly lifting, replaced by something light and warm, like being remembered by the termite world itself. Eventually, the trees began to thin. The light shifted again, warmer now, like a sunrise behind closed eyes. The crystals faded into mist, and the forest became a memory, lingering gently in the air, but no longer solid. Eevee stopped. Ahead, the tree, the one it had fallen asleep beneath, was waiting. But it had changed again, returning to its original shape, old, steady, and quiet, with roots like arms and branches like sighs. The moon hung high above it, unchanged, a silent witness to dreams and time and all things gentle. Eevee padded back to the same spot beneath the roots. The grass was still cool, still soft. It curled up again, resting its head against the warm ground. And this time, when its eyes closed, they stayed closed. The breeze hummed softly through the leaves above, a lullaby that belonged only to this moment. The scent of distant berries and glowing moss drifted through the air, and the moonlight wrapped around Eevee like a blanket woven from peace. The last sound it heard before sleep fully took it was the whisper of that same voice, now even fainter, like a thought being tucked away for morning. The journey has begun. Sleep, in the world Eevee had entered, did not behave the way it did in the waking world. There were no sharp edges where awareness ended and dreams began, no sudden drop into darkness, no abrupt lifting into light. Instead, the passage between places felt like walking through silk hung in layers, each step quieter than the last, until the air around you stopped asking questions and instead simply let you rest. And so when Eevee awoke again, if awakening was the right word, it did not do so with a start, nor even with a stretch. It opened its eyes slowly, peacefully, as if it had always been half awake, floating just beneath the surface of some deeper current, and only now allowed itself to rise. The forest of singing crystal trees was gone, as was the great tree that had first sheltered it. In their place stretched a wide and endless field, open and pale, blanketed in soft moss that shimmered faintly under a sky of muted silver. There was no sun overhead, no moon either, only a soft ambient light that filled the space like fog fills a valley, neither coming from above nor from any source at all, but simply present, like warmth from a memory you cannot quite place. Eevee rose to its feet slowly, as if every part of its body still remembered sleep and hesitated to leave it behind. The moss beneath its paws gave ever so slightly, springy and comforting, like walking on clouds that had drifted down to earth just for this moment. Each step left a faint glow in its wake, not bright enough to call attention, but enough to suggest that the dream was aware of its movement, that the very ground welcomed its presence and gently remembered each place it touched. The field stretched in all directions, vast and uninterrupted, yet not empty. Though nothing towered in the distance, and no features broke the horizon, The space was alive, with something quiet and unseen. It took Eevee a few steps to notice it, but once it did, the sensation was unmistakable. The air here was filled with what felt like whispers, not words, not sounds, but impressions, barely their echoes of something that had once been spoken, or maybe only felt. They drifted by like pollen on the wind, not pushing or pulling, but moving of their own gentle accord. When one passed close to Eevee, it brought with it a sudden warmth in the chest, a strange tenderness, like the memory of a kind voice calling its name from a faraway place, or the vague comfort of having been held once, long ago, on a rainy afternoon. The feeling lasted only a moment, but it lingered in the heart, like the trailing warmth of a fire's final ember. And just as Eevee began to accept the presence of these drifting echoes, it noticed something even more subtle, the way they changed depending on how it moved, or what it felt. When it walked more slowly, with its breathing calm and deep, the echoes stayed closer, gliding by in peaceful rhythm. But when its thoughts wandered too quickly, or when its paws grew restless, the echoes drifted further away, never fleeing, only waiting, like quiet companions who understood the importance of timing. This realization filled Eevee with a strange sense of responsibility. Not in a burdensome way, but as if it had been given a soft gift, and it wished to treat it gently. So it moved with greater care now, not rushing, not pausing too long, simply existing in rhythm with the space around it. The field did not demand anything from it, but it rewarded attention, like a world that opened wider the more patiently it was observed. Eevee noticed that the moss had texture beyond what it first appeared. It wasn't just soft and glowing. It pulsed faintly beneath its paws, like a heartbeat, though not its own. Perhaps it was the heartbeat of the dream itself, or perhaps of the land beneath. With each step, Eevee began to sense that it was not just walking across a surface, it was walking upon something alive, ancient, and entirely at peace with itself. Further along, a new sensation arose, not stronger, but different. The echoes now carried with them faint sounds, not voices exactly, but tonal fragments. A single note here, a soft chime there, like a lullaby remembered from childhood but never quite sung aloud. Some of these tones were warm, others cool, but all were slow, elongated, and filled with a kind of nostalgic sweetness. It was as if the wind itself had begun to hum. One particular echo drifted near and lingered longer than the others. It didn't touch Eevee physically, but its presence felt more personal, more familiar. The sensation it brought was quiet joy, the simple kind that comes from lying in sunlight with nothing to do, or from watching ripples on a pond while the world hums gently around you. Eevee paused for a moment, closed its eyes, and let the feeling settle deep within its chest. Then, as though responding to that moment of stillness, the landscape began to change, not suddenly, but gradually, the way twilight fades into dusk. The moss deepened in color, taking on richer hues of lavender and soft blue. The echoes thinned slightly, drifting higher into the air, and the tones faded, leaving behind a serene silence that felt like the pause between two gentle breaths. At the crest of a small rise in the field, a place just tall enough to be called a hill, though it held no height of consequence, Eevee found itself drawn to stillness once again. It curled its tail around its side and lowered its body to the moss, letting the soft ground cradle its form as if shaped just for it. The air here was slightly warmer, and it carried a new scent now, something like the memory of clean rain, mixed with the sweet scent of a place you used to know. There were no more echoes now, not in the way they had been before. Instead, there was stillness, not silence, but a kind of resting quiet. A space where nothing needed to be said, where simply being was enough. And in that quiet, the voice returned. "You have listened well," it said, its tone unchanged. "Neither loud nor distant, neither inside nor outside. This place does not speak through words, but through what it offers, and you have accepted it gently." Eevee did not respond, but a sense of calm settled over it, like a blanket of evening mist. The voice did not expect answers. It only named truths that were already known. There will be other places, the voice continued. Places where your steps will echo louder and where choices may stir the air more sharply. But for now, carry this stillness with you. And with those words, the breeze picked up, just slightly, and the field began to shift once more. The moss beneath Eevee's body remained soft, but now it seemed to stretch gently in one direction, not forcefully, but with a subtle flow, like the tide nudging a sleeping boat. The faint mist that had hovered overhead began to drift as well, drawn toward a distant shimmer just barely visible ahead. Eevee stood slowly, unhurried, and followed the gentle flow, guided not by sight or need, but by trust. The shimmer grew larger as it walked, taking form slowly, revealing itself to be an arch made of woven light and fine silver strands. It stood alone, like the suggestion of a doorway between one dream and the next. Nothing blocked the passage. Nothing guarded it. It was simply there, waiting, patient, and still. And so, without fear, without hesitation, Eevee passed through the arch. The field of soft echoes remained behind, not lost, not forgotten, but folded into the fabric of its journey, like a gentle breath held inside. Ahead, something new awaited, but there was no rush to meet it. In the dream world, time bowed to stillness, and Eevee, heart light and spirit calm, walked quietly forward into whatever would come next. As Eevee stepped beyond the arch of light, the world around it changed once more, but not in a way that startled, nor in a way that rushed. The shift was gentle, like the slow turning of a page in a well-worn book, or the hush that follows the last note of a lullaby. The field of soft echoes receded behind, melting into memory without sadness. And ahead, a quiet path revealed itself, winding gently between low hills bathed in soft, silver mist. The path was not carved or marked. It wasn't built or maintained. It existed the way streams do, naturally, patiently, as if it had always been there, simply waiting to be walked. Pale stones lined its edges, smooth and glowing faintly, casting a cool, muted light that matched the sky above. The light here didn't come from a sun or moon. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once, like the quiet awareness in a dream where things simply are because they are meant to be. Eevee moved forward slowly, unhurried, and aware of every step. The grass beneath its paws was softer than moss now, almost silk-like, bending with each touch and springing back without resistance. The air was crisp but not cold, and the silence around it was complete, though never empty. It was the kind of silence that listens, that embraces, that says, "You are safe here." After some time, the path began to widen. The hills softened further, flattening into a low plain. And there, sprawling out before Eevee like a dream waiting to be remembered, was the lake. It was vast, serene, and impossibly still. The surface was smoother than glass, completely unbroken, not even touched by wind or passing air. No birds flew above it. No insects danced along its edge. It was not just a body of water. It was a mirror of stillness itself, as if the very idea of motion had decided to rest here. The lake didn't reflect the sky or the hills or Eevee itself. Instead, it glowed faintly from within, like it had swallowed the stars and let them drift endlessly beneath its surface. Eevee approached the edge slowly, drawn not by curiosity, but by something deeper. There was a pull here, not physical, but emotional, like the memory of a voice you haven't heard in a long time calling your name from across a quiet room. The grass faded seamlessly into the lake's edge, with no sand or stone to mark the boundary. It was as though the earth itself had slipped gently beneath the surface and chosen to sleep there. As it sat at the shoreline, Eevee felt the stillness wash over it in waves, though the water remained untouched. It lowered itself onto the soft ground, folding its legs beneath its body, and gazed out across the endless silver. The lake offered no reflection, no image. It offered only presence. Then something subtle shifted, not in the world, but in the air around it. A hum began to rise, so faint it could have been imagined. It wasn't a song, not in the traditional sense, but a resonance, like the vibration of something ancient and sacred remembering its own name. It didn't grow louder, but it deepened, settling into Eevee's chest like a second heartbeat, one that had always been there but only now made itself known. From the corner of its eye, Eevee saw the surface of the lake shimmer. Not ripple, not move, but shimmer, as if it had briefly become a veil between what is seen and what is felt. A figure appeared there, not in the water, not above it, but within it. At first, the image was vague, undefined, but slowly it took on form. It looked like Eevee, and yet it did not. The figure was familiar, but not identical. Its movements were slower, more grounded. Its eyes held a calm deeper than rest. This was not a reflection. It was a vision of what Eevee might become, or perhaps already was, beneath all the layers of uncertainty and restlessness. It was not older, nor younger. It was whole. The image didn't speak, but its presence filled the space between thoughts. And with that presence came memories, not sharp, clear ones, but soft, emotional impressions, lying, curled beneath leaves in a quiet forest, watching the stars blink into life, one by one, resting beside another body, warm and safe, with nothing needing to be said. These were not memories Eevee recognized, and yet they didn't feel foreign. They felt like parts of a story not yet lived, waiting patiently to unfold. The lake wasn't showing the past, nor predicting the future. It was offering the truth that rests below everything, the still dream beneath the noise of the waking world. A voice came again, but not from the image. It rose from the lake itself, like the echo of something that had been spoken long ago and had waited all this time to be heard again. It was smooth, low, and comforting. This place does not show you what was, nor what will be. It reflects what is beneath, the part of you that never sleeps, the still part that remembers even when you forget. Eevee remained silent, but its heart was full. It understood, without needing to think. There were no riddles here, no tasks, no choices to be made, just understanding, just stillness. The surface of the lake began to glow more brightly, and images rose again, now not just of itself, but of places. A forest bathed in twilight, a gentle river winding through golden grass, a quiet den tucked into the roots of an old, wide tree. Each one appeared for only a few moments, then faded, replaced by the next. They were not destinations. They were states of being. Then came a different kind of image. A storm, not violent, but persistent. Rain falling through darkness. A small figure, curled in the hollow of a tree. Alone, but calm. Eevee felt its breath catch, not in fear, but in recognition. This was solitude, not loneliness. It was the quiet strength of being with oneself, trusting that the world would change again, and that all things, even storms, would pass. As the rain faded from the vision, another scene took its place. A field of tall grass at sunrise, dew sparkling like stars in reverse. Another Pokemon, its form not quite clear, walked beside Eevee, both silent, both moving with the same rhythm. Companionship without need. Presence without pressure. The lake spoke once more. What you are is more than one shape, more than one path. You do not need to know what comes next. You only need to listen. The lake dimmed slightly, not in sadness, but like a candle settling into its final glow for the night. The hum beneath Eevee's fur softened. The heartbeat, that wasn't its own, slowed. It lay down then, body resting fully on the cool earth, tail curled near its nose. The sky above remained unchanged. No stars appeared, no moon climbed into view, but it didn't matter. The lake offered a kind of peace that required no sky, a peace that did not need to end. Time drifted without meaning. Minutes passed like hours, hours like moments. And in that time the dream held firm, not fading, not shifting, but waiting. Eventually the hum returned, not louder, but clearer. It wasn't the lake this time. It came from within. Eevee opened its eyes slowly, not startled, not disturbed. It rose gently, the way leaves lift in a breeze, and looked once more over the water. The lake still shimmered. But now, it no longer called. It had given what it meant to give, and the silence between them was full of understanding. Turning back to the path, Eevee saw that it had changed. A new opening had formed at the far edge of the lake, where the hills rose slightly higher. The stones along the ground pulsed faintly with a golden hue, as if illuminated by something warm just beyond sight. Eevee did not rush. It stood a moment longer, breathing slowly, deeply, the way one does after waking from a gentle dream they wish to carry just a little longer. Then it stepped forward, leaving the lake behind, but not forgetting it. That kind of stillness doesn't leave you. It stays quiet and close, even as the world moves again. And as Eevee followed the softly glowing path upward, into whatever dream came next, the lake beneath the dream remained, silent, sacred, and still, waiting for the next gentle soul to arrive and listen. The path leading away from the lake was soft under Eevee's paws, the earth still moist with the gentle mist that clung to the morning air. As it ventured forward, the landscape began to change gradually, shifting from the open water's edge into a realm that felt older, quieter, and somehow heavier with time. The gentle hills around it grew higher, though they never became steep or difficult to climb. Rather, they curved with a slow, deliberate grace, like the arch of an ancient bridge resting calmly across the earth. The grass, once bright and fresh, thinned out into patches of moss and stone, where delicate green shoots struggled between cracks, reaching for the faint light that filtered through the overhanging branches. With every step, the air grew cooler and carried the subtle fragrance of earth and bark, mingled with the faint aroma of fallen leaves. It was a scent that spoke of ages long past, of countless seasons folding into one another, of rain and sun and wind playing their quiet games beneath the canopy of a place that had seen the world change in slow, sweeping motions. This was no ordinary forest, Eevee realized, but a grove, a place where trees had grown not in wild abandon but with intention and care, each standing with measured space around them, as if honoring the breathing room needed to grow deep roots and strong branches. The trees here were tall and stately, their trunks thick with age and wisdom. Their bark was rough and cracked, etched with lines that told stories only the most patient eyes could read. Their branches arched high above, forming a natural cathedral where light filtered softly through leaves that shimmered faintly but remained motionless, not stirred even by the slightest breeze. The silence that settled in this grove was profound. Not an absence of sound, but a presence of something deeper. A stillness so complete, it felt like the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for something just beyond the edges of understanding. Eevee padded carefully through the grove, its paws making little sound against the thick carpet of fallen leaves that blanketed the ground. These leaves had long since stopped the cycle of decay, lying in layers of soft gold and russet that seemed to muffle even the faintest noise. Here, the earth felt alive with memories, as if each step echoed not just in space, but in time, connecting the present moment with countless yesterdays folded quietly beneath the soil. The air was cool and dry, and the shadows stretched long across the ground, cast by the ancient trees standing sentinel in their timeless vigil. In the very center of the grove stood a tree unlike any other, its trunk massive and gnarled, twisted by centuries of weather and growth into shapes that seemed almost like sleeping faces or folded wings. Its bark was thick and deeply ridged, with roots sprawling out above the ground in broad, curling loops that formed natural shelters and secret spaces. This tree was the heart of the grove, not just a living being, but a keeper of memories and quiet wisdom, a guardian of rest and renewal. Its presence was palpable, a steady warmth that seeped into the ground and rose gently beneath Eevee's paws as it approached, inviting it into the embrace of something far larger than itself. Without hesitation, Eevee slipped into one of the hollows formed by the great roots, curling its body into a small, safe shape. It closed its eyes, not from weariness, but from a deep sense of peace that settled over it like a gentle tide. Within this quiet refuge, Eevee felt a pulse begin to beat, slow, steady, and rhythmic, as if the grove itself were breathing alongside it, sharing a heartbeat that connected them both. This pulse was neither loud nor demanding. It was a soft, ancient rhythm that wrapped around Eevee like a lullaby whispered by the earth itself. As Eevee rested there, images began to rise in its mind, not memories of its own journey, but visions that belonged to the grove. It saw a young tree, tender and green, reaching its first leaves toward the morning mist, trembling in the soft light of dawn. It witnessed the delicate glow of a single firefly, flickering briefly as it landed on a branch, lighting the darkness for a moment before vanishing again. It felt the steady rain falling through heavy branches, not washing the leaves clean, but instead whispering stories as the droplets slid down rough bark and gathered in small pools at the roots. Through these quiet visions, Eevee understood the grove, not just as it was in this moment, but as it had been through countless cycles of growth and rest. The trees here had once stretched and thrived with exuberant life, dancing with wind and song and starry nights. And then, over time, they had chosen to slow, not because of loss or sadness, but because their work was done. They had grown as far as they needed, and now, in their stillness, they held a different kind of strength. The strength of wisdom, of peace, and of deep, restful knowing. Eevee felt a gentle stirring within itself, a soft recognition of something old and true, a lesson whispered by the grove's silence. There was no rush here. There was no hurry. Life was not a race, and growth was not measured by speed or change alone. Sometimes, the most important moments were those spent in quiet stillness, in listening and resting, and simply being. The grove spoke without words. Its voice carried on the silence and the slow rhythm of the earth beneath. You do not need to hurry, it seemed to say. There is no line to cross, no moment you must reach before you are ready. Just breathe and trust the journey. A breeze finally stirred the air, gentle and slow, moving through the leaves with a soft rustle that sounded almost like a sigh. It was the first movement the grove had allowed since Eevee arrived, and it carried with it a promise, not of urgency or demand, but of readiness. The world was still turning, still unfolding, but in its own time. Eevee opened its eyes and stretched, feeling the calm warmth of the grove settle deep into its bones. It rose from the hollow with quiet confidence, stepping lightly through the trees as the pulse beneath its paws faded into the steady rhythm of its own heartbeat. Before leaving, Eevee paused to look back at the great tree, its twisted roots seeming to smile in the soft light, as if blessing the little creature that had found rest within its ancient embrace. The path beyond the grove waited quietly, unmarked but present, inviting Eevee onward to the next chapter of its journey. With calm steps and a peaceful heart, Eevee moved forward, carrying the stillness of the grove with it, ready to walk whatever paths lay ahead. The morning light filtered softly through the leaves as Eevee stepped beyond the grove that had cradled it in quiet rest. The world outside felt alive in a different way, not the slow, heavy stillness of ancient trees, but a gentle awakening, as if the earth itself was stirring from a long sleep. The path stretched ahead, winding through gentle hills and soft patches of wildflowers that nodded in the mild breeze. Eevee moved with calm purpose, sensing the subtle shifts in the air and the changes in light, noticing how shadows lengthened and shortened with the slow turning of the Sunday. It was a moment of transition, a passage from deep rest to gentle motion, from silence to the faint hum of life waking all around. As Eevee traveled, the landscape opened wider. The trees became younger here, thinner, with leaves that trembled lightly whenever the wind whispered through them. The grass beneath its paws was softer, dotted with delicate blooms in shades of pale pink and white, their petals unfolding slowly, as if inviting the world to pause and breathe alongside them. The scent in the air was sweet and fresh, mingling with the earthiness of soil warmed by the sun's first touch. Everywhere life seemed tender and new, yet balanced by an ancient calm, the promise of growth held gently in the quiet. Eevee felt a subtle joy in this place, a quiet happiness that was neither loud nor urgent, but steady and sure. It was the kind of feeling that comes from knowing you are exactly where you need to be, that every step forward is part of a greater unfolding that you can trust. With each breath, Eevee absorbed the softness of the world, the warmth of the sun, the coolness of shaded earth, the distant call of birds beginning their morning songs. There was a rhythm here, a gentle pulse that matched the steady beat within Eevee's own heart, weaving the creature and the landscape into a single quiet harmony. The path soon led to a small meadow, a wide-open space framed by slender trees whose branches arched gracefully overhead. The grass here was lush and green, dotted with clusters of wildflowers that swayed gently as a soft breeze drifted through the clearing. In the center of the meadow, a small pond shimmered like a mirror, reflecting the sky and the trees in perfect stillness. Eevee paused at the edge of the water, lowering its head to drink the cool, clear liquid. The pond seemed more than just a source of water. It was a place of reflection and renewal, a quiet sanctuary where the world's soft light gathered and lingered. As Eevee rested by the pond, it noticed a subtle movement beneath the surface. Small ripples spread slowly across the water, as if something just beneath was stirring. Eevee watched quietly, sensing the life that thrived hidden beneath the calm exterior. In that moment, Eevee understood that even the stillest places carried within them the potential for motion, and that rest and activity were not opposites, but companions in the dance of existence. Rising from the pond's edge, Eevee continued its journey with a renewed sense of peace and curiosity. The trail beyond the meadow wound upward, leading to a gentle rise where the air grew cooler and the scent of pine mingled with the fresh earth. The trees here were taller again, their branches thick, with dark green needles that filtered the sunlight into soft beams. Eevee moved slowly beneath their shade, feeling the comforting shelter they provided and the steady heartbeat of the forest all around. Here, the world felt both alive and ancient, a place where time stretched wide and deep, where moments could be savored without haste. Eevee paused often, allowing itself to simply be, to listen to the whisper of needles in the wind, to watch the slow dance of shadows across the ground, to feel the steady pulse of life that connected every living thing. In the forest, each breath was a gift, each step a quiet affirmation of belonging. As the day moved toward evening, the light softened into warm golds and gentle pinks. Eevee found a soft bed of moss beneath a towering pine and settled down, curling its tail close and closing its eyes. The forest around it hummed with quiet life, the rustle of small creatures settling in for the night, the distant call of owls awakening. In this peaceful cocoon, Eevee felt the steady calm of the world wrap around it once more, a gentle reminder that rest was never far, and that every journey had its moments of stillness and renewal. And so, under the canopy of stars beginning to appear, Eevee drifted into a calm sleep, carrying with it the soft harmony of the meadow, the pond, and the pine forest, a heart steady, a spirit quiet, and a path waiting still to be explored. Stretched softly over the horizon, gently brushing the sky with delicate hues of pink and lavender that slowly melted into the soft blue of a waking day. Eevee stirred beneath the protective canopy of towering pine trees, where the night's cool embrace lingered like a whispered secret. As the sun began to rise, it sent thin golden fingers reaching through the branches, casting long, gentle shadows on the forest floor. The coolness of the air slowly gave way to a tender warmth, as if the earth itself was sighing awake, welcoming the slow turn of the day. Eevee lifted its head, breathing in the crisp scent of pine needles mingled with damp earth and the faint aroma of wildflowers still closed from the cool night. With quiet, measured steps, it set out again, moving with the ease and grace of one who understands that the journey is not a race, but a gentle unfolding. The path ahead wound through a dense thicket, where sunlight filtered unevenly through thick leaves, creating a mosaic of shimmering gold and deep green. Patterns of shade danced softly across the soft moss and fallen leaves that blanketed the ground in a thick, spongy carpet. The forest here felt alive with a quiet energy, a subtle symphony of life awakening. The air was filled with the hum of insects, delicate and nearly imperceptible, weaving together with the occasional chirp of distant birds and the rustle of small creatures moving unseen through the undergrowth. Eevee paused often, ears tilting towards the faintest sounds, eyes scanning the dappled shadows, feeling a deep connection to the living web of the forest. Each breath brought with it the scent of pine resin and earth, warmed by the first touch of the sun, and each step was cushioned by the soft ground beneath, inviting slow, mindful movement. As the trail curved gently upward, the trees began to thin, giving way to a small clearing bathed in warm sunlight. The change was like stepping into a different world. Here, the air felt lighter, warmer, touched by the golden rays that filtered through high branches. At the center of the clearing stood an ancient stone, moss-covered and worn smooth by countless years of wind and rain. It was a silent sentinel, a monument to the passage of time, carrying within it a quiet energy that seemed to resonate with the heartbeat of the earth beneath. Eevee circled the stone slowly, its eyes soft with reverence and wonder. The stone felt alive in a way that went beyond the physical, as if it held stories whispered by the land itself. Stories of growth, rest, and renewal that spanned generations. Around the stone, the clearing blossomed with tender life. Tiny flowers, delicate and pale in shades of blue and white, peeked shyly from the grass, their petals trembling softly in the gentle breeze. A family of small birds flitted among the branches overhead, their movements light and joyful as they sang quiet songs to the morning. The sunlight moved with the breeze, casting fleeting shadows that danced like whispers across the stone and ground. Eevee settled nearby, its body relaxed and still, watching the soft interplay of light and shadow. In that moment, a profound sense of connection settled deep within, a feeling that all things, both seen and unseen, were part of a vast, intricate story woven through time and space, and that it was but one small thread in the grand tapestry. After a time of quiet reflection, Eevee rose and continued on, following the path as it wound gently upward to a ridge that offered a breathtaking view over the endless forest below. The vast canopy of trees stretched to the horizon, their crowns swaying in slow, harmonious waves as the wind traveled softly across the land. From this vantage point, Eevee felt the immensity of the world, the quiet strength of the woods, the limitless sky overhead, and the steady earth beneath its paws. It was a humbling and comforting reminder that although it was small, it belonged to something greater and enduring, part of the endless cycles of nature and life. The descent from the ridge was gentle and easy, bringing Eevee back to the sheltering arms of the forest, where the light softened and shadows lengthened as the day moved toward its close. The soft crunch of leaves underfoot marked a steady rhythm, a quiet melody that echoed the calm beat within its own heart. As the sun dipped lower, bathing the world in warm amber light, Eevee found a sheltered nook beneath a sprawling oak tree, its massive limbs stretched wide like a guardian's embrace. The air was cooler here, carrying the scent of rich soil and fading flowers, the sound of distant rustling promising a night alive with gentle life. Eevee curled into the soft bed of moss beneath the oak, tail wrapped snugly around its body, eyes closing slowly as it allowed the steady pulse of the earth to fill its senses. Around it, the forest settled into the hush of evening, the rustle of small creatures preparing for night, the distant call of owls awakening in the shadows, and the whisper of wind weaving softly through the leaves. In this peaceful cocoon, Eevee felt the steady calm of the world wrap around it like a warm blanket, a quiet assurance that rest was not just a pause, but an essential part of the journey. It was in moments like these that the soul could breathe fully, open to the gentle mysteries of life unfolding in its own time. As twilight deepened and stars began to shimmer faintly through the gaps in the branches, Eevee drifted into a calm, restful sleep. It carried with it the soft harmony of the meadow, the ancient stone and the towering pines, a heart steady and full, a spirit quiet and ready for whatever paths awaited with the coming dawn. As the first light of a new day softly spilled over the horizon, Eevee stirred gently beneath the shelter of the old oak tree, feeling the lingering warmth of the moss beneath its body and the cool caress of the morning breeze brushing through the leaves overhead. The forest was beginning to wake once more, a slow and tender awakening that seemed to stretch and yawn with the rhythm of nature's endless dance. Eevee rose carefully, its paws touching the soft earth with a quiet grace, and it set out once again along the path that wound beyond the oak's protective branches. The world around it was alive with subtle sounds, the distant call of a songbird greeting the dawn, the gentle rustle of leaves stirred by an early breeze, the faint hum of insects beginning their morning chorus. All of these delicate movements wove together into a symphony of peace, a soundtrack of calm that eased the heart and steadied the mind. The trail led Eevee into a part of the forest where the trees stood closer together, their trunks rising tall and straight, like silent sentinels guarding a secret world hidden beneath their leafy canopy. Here the air was cooler and thick with the scent of pine and rich earth, and the light filtered softly through layers of green, dappling the ground in patterns that seemed almost alive, as they shifted gently with the movement of the branches. The forest floor was carpeted with fallen needles and soft moss, muffling every step and inviting Eevee to move slowly and deliberately, to become fully present in the moment. The silence here was deep but not empty. It was filled with the quiet pulse of life. As Eevee walked, it noticed small details that might have gone unseen elsewhere. The delicate curl of a fern unfurling its tender fronds toward the light, the bright flash of a butterfly's wings as it fluttered past, the glint of dew on a spider's web stretched between two branches. These little signs of life spoke of the constant flow of growth and change that moved through the forest with both gentleness and determination. It was a reminder that even in the quietest places, the world was alive with energy, weaving stories of renewal and transformation that reached far beyond the eye. Further along the path, the forest began to thin, revealing a small clearing where the sunlight poured down like liquid gold, warming the earth and stirring the scent of wildflowers that bloomed in abundance. The meadow was alive with color, the soft pinks and whites of delicate petals, the bright yellows and purples of blossoms reaching toward the sky. Bees hummed softly as they moved from flower to flower, gathering nectar with quiet purpose, while butterflies danced lightly on the breeze, their movements as effortless as the sunlight itself. Eevee paused at the edge of this vibrant oasis, taking a moment to breathe in the rich scents and soak in the gentle warmth that seemed to pulse through the air. In the center of the meadow stood a single ancient tree, its branches spreading wide and low, offering shade and shelter to any who might seek refuge beneath. Its bark was textured and weathered, etched with the marks of countless seasons, and its leaves whispered softly in the breeze, as if sharing secrets with the wind. Eevee approached the tree slowly, feeling a deep sense of reverence and calm settle over its spirit. There was a quiet wisdom here, a timeless strength that spoke not in words, but in presence, an invitation to rest, to listen, and to simply be. Eevee nestled among the roots of the great tree, its body sinking into the soft earth as it closed its eyes and allowed the peacefulness of the meadow to wash over it. The sounds of the forest blended with the steady rhythm of its own breathing, creating a harmony that soothed and steadied the heart. Time seemed to stretch and fold gently, and in this suspended moment, the worries and haste of the world fell away, replaced by a deep sense of belonging and peace. As the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, casting long, warm shadows across the meadow, Eevee felt a gentle contentment settle within, a quiet assurance that the path it walked was the right one, unfolding exactly as it should. It remained there beneath the ancient tree, wrapped in the soft glow of the fading light, ready to greet the coming night with a heart calm and full. As the twilight deepened, casting a gentle veil of purple and indigo over the forest, Eevee slowly rose from beneath the ancient tree's sheltering branches. The air was cool now, carrying with it the soft scent of evening blossoms and the faint, distant melody of night creatures beginning their symphony. Eevee's paws met the earth quietly, each step measured and unhurried, as if the very rhythm of the night encouraged a peaceful, deliberate pace. The forest around was bathed in the dim glow of fading light, shadows stretching long and soft, blending into one another in a soothing tapestry of shapes and hues. Moving forward, Eevee found itself on a narrow path lined with tall grasses that swayed gently in the evening breeze. The blades brushed softly against its fur, whispering secrets carried from faraway lands and distant times. The path wound through clusters of wildflowers that, under the twilight's subtle light, seemed to shimmer faintly, their colors muted yet somehow more vivid in the hush of dusk. Above, the sky was a canvas painted with the first twinkling stars, their silver glimmers like distant lanterns guiding the way. Eevee's eyes lifted briefly to the heavens, feeling the vastness above and the gentle quiet that stretched endlessly in every direction. As the journey continued, the path led to the edge of a calm, reflective lake, its surface smooth and dark, mirroring the sky and the silhouettes of surrounding trees with a clarity that seemed almost magical. The water was so still that the gentle ripple of a single drop falling from a leaf was enough to send soft waves cascading outward, breaking the perfect mirror only briefly before the lake returned to its tranquil state. Eevee approached the water's edge carefully, the cool earth beneath its paws giving way to smooth stones that lined the shore. Lowering its head, Eevee drank slowly, savoring the cool, pure taste, feeling a quiet refreshment that seemed to seep deep into its being. The lake held a mysterious calm, a stillness that invited reflection not only of the world above, but of the inner self. Eevee sat by the shore for a time, eyes half closed, watching as the stars grew brighter and the moon began its slow climb into the sky. The soft glow of moonlight filtered through the branches, casting gentle silver patterns on the ground, weaving light and shadow into a delicate dance. In the quiet that enveloped the scene, Eevee felt a deep connection to the night, to the silent stories whispered by the stars, and to the endless cycle of rest and awakening that the world embraced. After a while, the gentle chirp of crickets rose from the grasses, adding a tender melody to the night's quiet symphony. Eevee stood and stretched, muscles relaxing under the soothing blanket of darkness and cool air. It moved slowly away from the lake, following a faint trail that wound deeper into the forest, where the canopy thickened and the world grew darker, yet the comforting glow of fireflies began to appear, flickering like tiny stars brought to earth. Their soft light illuminated the path with a magical glow, guiding Eevee through the shadows with gentle assurance. In this serene nightscape, every sound, every breath of wind, every flicker of light felt woven together into a perfect harmony, a reminder that even in the stillness of darkness, life thrived and beauty endured. Eevee's heart was steady, its spirit calm and open to the quiet wonders that the night revealed. The journey continued, slow and mindful, beneath the canopy of stars and the watchful gaze of the moon, moving forward in peace and gentle anticipation of the new day to come. The night was beginning to wane, though the world still held on to its quiet shadow. As Eevee moved through the hush of the early morning hours, the soft rhythm of its paws against the forest floor became a companion to the slow breath of the earth. Overhead, the stars were still visible, faint now, their silver light fading like the last notes of a lullaby. The moon, high and pale, cast a muted glow across the land, as if reluctant to give up the stillness it guarded. Yet, beyond the trees, a faint glimmer on the horizon signaled the return of the sun, not in brightness or heat just yet, but in the way the sky itself seemed to soften, preparing to welcome the day. Eevee climbed a gentle slope lined with ancient birch trees, their white trunks glowing faintly in the moonlight, and their delicate leaves fluttering like whispers in the breeze. Here, the world was silent in a sacred way, not from emptiness, but from reverence. Every branch, every stone, every blade of grass felt as though it was holding its breath, waiting for the first warm rays to stir the world back to motion. Eevee paused near the top of the hill, its fur touched by dew, and sat quietly beneath one of the trees. From this vantage point, it could see the stretch of forest it had wandered through, endless waves of green, silver, and shadow, stretching out to meet the edge of the sky. There was a sense of deep contentment in that view, a feeling of knowing that every step had carried meaning, even when the destination was unknown. As the horizon began to shift, the very first hues of dawn unfolded, soft peach and gentle rose, barely visible at first, like a memory returning from sleep. The transformation was slow, almost imperceptible, but it filled the air with a growing warmth that wrapped around the landscape like a blanket being pulled over tired shoulders. The light reached into the forest slowly, touching the tops of trees, waking the tips of branches, and eventually finding Eevee's small, still figure beneath the birch. Eevee blinked once, then looked up, watching as the sky bloomed with soft colors and the wind shifted ever so slightly. With the sun's approach came the first sounds of day, a single bird calling from deep within the woods, then another and another, until a gentle chorus began to form. Leaves rustled more boldly now, and the scent of the earth grew richer, warmer, as if the soil itself was stirring awake. Eevee rose slowly, its body stretching with a quiet elegance, and stepped forward into the new light. The slope led down into a wide valley, open and golden, covered in low grasses that shimmered with dew. As Eevee entered the field, the tall grass swayed around it, brushing softly against its fur and leaving trails of moisture along its sides. The warmth of the sun had not yet fully arrived, but its presence could be felt, not just in the sky, but in the way the earth itself seemed to lean toward it, eager to welcome the day. The path through the valley was less defined, more a suggestion than a direction, allowing Eevee to wander freely. It explored at its own pace, moving between gentle mounds and patches of wildflowers that were just beginning to open their delicate petals. Bees, still slow and drowsy from the night, hovered lazily nearby, and the air was filled with a faint, sweet perfume carried on the light breeze. In the heart of the valley stood a grove of trees, unlike those Eevee had passed before, shorter, with twisted trunks and soft, wide leaves that glittered in the morning light. The space between them was open and sunlit, the ground covered in a blanket of clover and tiny white blossoms that gave off a fresh, clean scent. Here the sun finally rose above the ridge behind, spilling gold across the grove and wrapping Eevee in its light. The warmth wasn't sudden or harsh. It arrived like a gentle embrace, like waking in a familiar bed after a deep and peaceful sleep. It filled Eevee's fur and seeped into its bones, easing every muscle and lifting its spirit in the quietest of ways. Eevee found a smooth stone, warmed by the sun, and climbed atop it, curling gently into its own shape. Around it, the world continued to brighten, but there was no noise, no urgency. The morning had arrived without rush, and the day stretched ahead, not with demands, but with possibility. Eevee closed its eyes briefly, feeling the warmth on its face and the soft hum of life beginning anew around it. There was a quiet confidence here, the kind that didn't shout or press, but simply was. A knowing that the world would keep turning, that the sun would keep rising, and that the journey would unfold in its own time, whether hurried or slow. The air shifted again, ever so subtly, and with it came a feeling of renewal. Not the kind that starts with a great change or grand realization, but the quiet sort, the kind born from rest and peace and presence. Eevee stood once more, not because it needed to move, but because it felt ready. The path beyond the grove was unknown, disappearing again into distant trees and shadows. But the warmth of the morning followed close behind, like a gentle companion, and the steady rhythm of Eevee's breath guided each step forward. And so, with sunlight now at its back, and the memory of stars still faintly lingering in its heart, Eevee continued its journey, quiet, centered, and whole, walking onward into the soft promise of the day. The morning had unfolded slowly, and now the sun rode higher in the sky, casting soft, warm light across the open land that stretched out before Eevee. The forest behind had grown distant, its tall trees now only a line of green at the edge of the horizon, swaying gently like memories left behind. Ahead, the terrain was broad and open, rolling hills blanketed in soft grass that moved like waves beneath the breeze, their curves gentle and welcoming, inviting quiet exploration. Eevee walked with calm purpose, its steps silent and unhurried. The earth here was warm beneath its paws, sun-kissed and soft, and the breeze that moved across the hills was cool and constant, carrying with it the scents of wild herbs and blooming flowers hidden among the grass. Small butterflies rose into the air as Eevee passed, lifting lazily into the sunlight before drifting away like pieces of sky come to rest on delicate wings. There was no clear path here, no worn trail or obvious direction. Yet Eevee felt no uncertainty. The world itself seemed to guide the way, not through signs or markers, but through feeling. A sense of quiet trust had grown within, a deep and steady knowing that every step was part of something meaningful, even if the destination remained unseen. In the distance, nestled between two wide hills, lay a glade unlike any Eevee had yet encountered. It shimmered faintly, not with light or movement, but with stillness, a kind of quiet that drew the eye and stirred the spirit. As Eevee approached, the sound of the wind seemed to hush, and even the grass beneath its paws felt quieter, as if the ground itself respected the peace held within the glade. Entering it was like stepping into another time. The air was cooler here, and the light filtered through high, sparse trees with silver bark that caught the sunlight and reflected it softly, illuminating the space with a gentle glow. The grass was shorter, more even, as though it had been shaped by years of quiet. Footsteps. At the center of the glade was a pool of water so clear and still it might have been glass. It reflected not only the sky above, but also Eevee's soft form as it stood at the edge, peering into the quiet mirror. For a long moment, Eevee remained there, watching its reflection ripple gently with each breath. There was something calming about the water, not only its clarity, but its depth. It seemed to hold more than the sky or the trees. It held a feeling, a memory, a truth. Eevee lay down near the edge of the pool, letting its body rest in the dappled shade of a nearby tree. It did not sleep, but simply rested, eyes half closed, ears flicking gently with the breeze, mind quiet. The peace here was different than what had come before. It was not just the absence of sound or movement, but a deeper stillness, the kind that could only be felt when one had wandered far enough to shed the noise carried from elsewhere. In this space, the journey itself seemed to pause, not in interruption, but in reflection. It was a place to breathe, to look back without weight, to look forward without urgency. As the day stretched on, a soft humming began to rise in the air, not from any one place, but from all around. It was the sound of wind moving gently through the leaves, of insects drifting from flower to flower, of the world turning slowly and patiently. And as Eevee listened, it felt something shift inside, a soft opening like the petals of a flower touched by light. There was no sudden realization, no dramatic moment of clarity, but rather a slow unfolding. A gentle remembering of what had always been known, that it was enough simply to be, to breathe, to walk, to feel, to rest. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden rays across the glade and painting everything in warm light. The pool caught the colors and held them gently, its surface now aglow with pinks and oranges that pulsed like a quiet heartbeat. Eevee stood once more and moved toward the planged, far side of the glade, where the trees parted and the hills resumed. Behind it, the pool remained still, a perfect, silent witness, and ahead, the path began to rise again. With each step, the light grew softer, the colors deeper. The wind carried a cooler edge now, scented faintly with the promise of twilight. Yet Eevee moved forward with ease, the weight of the day balanced by the peace it carried within. The glade had given something, not a gift that could be seen or held, but a quiet reassurance, a reminder that sometimes the most profound moments were the still ones, the moments between movement, the pauses that allowed the soul to catch up to the body. At the crest of the next hill, Eevee paused, looking back one last time at the glade now nestled in the golden distance. Then it turned forward again, heart steady, mind calm, spirit light. The sky stretched wide above, painted with the fading hues of day. The night would come, and with it, a new kind of silence. But for now, there was warmth still in the air, and the journey, gentle and sure, continued. The last light of the afternoon stretched long across the land as Eevee crested another hill, its fur catching the sun's fading warmth like threads of golden silk. The landscape ahead had changed again, gently, almost imperceptibly, as if it had been unfolding beneath Eevee's paws without fanfare. Gone were the thick forests and shaded glades. Now, the world opened into a vast, quiet field that stretched endlessly, touched only by the low hum of wind moving through tall, sun-dried grass. There was a different kind of silence here. Not the hushed stillness of a shaded forest or the intimate quiet of a moonlit glade, but something broader, something older. This was the kind of silence that had existed long before anything had come to disturb it. The silence of open land, of slow wind, of time moving so gently it left no footprints behind. Eevee stood for a long moment at the edge of this space, feeling the shift. The openness was not empty, but vast, not lonely, but serene. With a deep, even breath, Eevee stepped forward, the grass parting around its legs with a soft rustle, the golden stalks bending as if bowing in welcome. The ground beneath was dry and warm, firm but gentle underfoot, and each step left a faint trail before the wind erased it quietly, as though even movement was encouraged to be gentle here. The sky above was wide, streaked with soft clouds painted in delicate shades of peach and lavender. The sun hung low, still clinging to the edge of the world, its light filtering sideways through the tall grass and casting long, graceful shadows. Somewhere in the distance, a lone bird called, a slow, mournful note that echoed once and faded, becoming part of the wind. As Eevee moved deeper into the field, it began to notice subtle signs of life. A low hum of insects, soft and steady. A pair of tiny, shy eyes watching from beneath a fallen log. The gentle flutter of wings far overhead. There was no rush here, no urgency. Everything moved at the pace of the wind, slow, patient, purposeful. In the heart of the field stood a single weathered tree, tall, broad, and gnarled with age. Its bark was cracked and pale, and its branches stretched wide like arms opening to embrace the sky. There were no leaves now, only thin twigs that rattled softly in the breeze. But even so, the tree felt alive, not in the way of spring or bloom, but in the quiet dignity of endurance. It had stood there through countless days and nights, through rain and sun and snow, and now it welcomed Eevee without question. Eevee approached the tree and settled beneath it, the trunk solid and cool against its back. From here, the view stretched unbroken in all directions, hills rising and falling like the breath of the earth, the sky slowly deepening into twilight. The light was softer now, turning the grass into rivers of gold and shadow. Eevee watched as the sun sank lower still, until it hovered just above the edge of the horizon, casting the last rays of warmth across the open land. In that moment, the world seemed to pause. The wind stilled, the sounds faded, and for a few long breaths, all was silent. Not from absence, but from reverence. It was as if the day itself was holding one final exhale, reluctant to let go. And then, the sun slipped beneath the hills, and the world exhaled. The sky deepened into dusky blue, and one by one, stars began to appear. Not all at once, but slowly, like shy lights blinking into view. The temperature dropped slightly, and the wind returned, cooler now, carrying with it the scent of distant water and the promise of night. Eevee curled gently into the grass beneath the old tree, letting the softness of the ground cradle its body as the stars continued to gather above. Sleep didn't come immediately. Instead, Eevee lay still, its eyes open, watching the slow unfolding of the night sky. There was comfort in the vastness, not intimidation, but belonging. The same wind that brushed the grass around its body now reached high into the sky, whispering past stars and clouds. And somewhere deep inside, Eevee felt its own breath match that rhythm, slow and steady, as if its body and the land were moving in quiet unison. This was not a place of change or movement, not a turning point in the journey, but rather a place of quiet alignment, of rest without forgetting the path, of stillness without ceasing to grow. And as the moon finally crested the eastern hills, casting its pale silver light over the open field, Eevee's eyes finally closed, not from exhaustion, but from peace. The world around it continued its soft breathing, the rustle of grass, the hum of distant insects, the whisper of wind, and within that gentle song, Eevee drifted into sleep. A sleep deep and calm, wrapped in moonlight and stars, beneath a sky vast enough to hold every dream. As the first soft tendrils of dawn brushed gently across the horizon, Eevee stirred beneath the ancient tree where it had rested through the night. The cool air of the early morning carried with it a delicate freshness, a whisper of renewal that seemed to breathe life back into every leaf, every blade of grass, every stone scattered across the quiet field. Slowly, Eevee's eyes fluttered open, catching the gentle hues of pink and lavender spilling into the sky like an artist's brush caressing a blank canvas. The world was waking, and with it, a calm energy seeped into the air, subtle yet unmistakable. Eevee rose, its paws pressing softly into the dew-kissed earth, each step careful and unhurried, as if honoring the serene moment of rebirth that surrounded it. The familiar landscape looked different bathed in this new light. Shadows from the night had softened and stretched, giving way to gentle warmth. The tree beneath which Eevee had slept stood tall, its silhouette framed by the emerging glow of day, a silent guardian witnessing the passage of time. Around Eevee, the field seemed to hum softly, the early stirrings of life beginning to weave their delicate dance through the grasses and wildflowers. The breeze, light and cool, swept across the open land, carrying the scents of fresh earth and blooming flora. As Eevee moved forward, it noticed small signs of morning activity, the faint rustle of leaves as a bird took flight, the slow awakening of insects hidden within the grass, and the shimmering dance of dewdrops catching the first rays of sunlight. Everything felt tender and new, as though the entire world was taking its first breath after a deep slumber. Eevee paused for a moment to drink in the tranquility, its heart beating in rhythm with the soft pulse of the waking day. Ahead, the hills rose gently, inviting Eevee onward with their soft slopes and sunlit curves. The path through the tall grasses was undefined, leaving freedom to wander and explore, without haste or pressure. With each step, the warmth of the sun grew, brushing against Eevee's fur and filling its being with a quiet joy. There was no destination in mind, only the unfolding journey itself, a gradual discovery of self and surroundings wrapped in the gentle embrace of morning's light. As the sun climbed higher, the sky opened wide, a vast expanse of soft blue stretching endlessly above. Clouds floated lazily, their edges tinged with gold, drifting without hurry or care. Eevee's gaze lifted toward the heavens, feeling both small and infinite within this grand, unfolding scene. The world was alive, breathing, moving, yet everything was bathed in a peaceful stillness that invited reflection and ease. It was a moment to be fully present, to savor the gentle cadence of life's quiet rhythm. Continuing along the gentle rise, Eevee found itself at the edge of a quiet stream, its waters clear and cool as they traced a shimmering line through the valley. The sunlight danced upon the surface, sending flickers of light to play upon the stones beneath. Eevee lowered its head to drink, the water refreshing and pure, a balm to its spirit after the long night's rest. The soft murmur of the stream added to the morning's serene soundtrack, blending seamlessly with the whispers of the breeze and the distant calls of awakening birds. After quenching its thirst, Eevee settled nearby, its body curling into a relaxed shape as it absorbed the peaceful energy around it. Time seemed to stretch and fold, becoming less about hours and minutes and more about feeling and presence. In this tranquil space, there was no need to rush or strive, only to exist and be, to listen to the world's quiet song and to find comfort in its steady flow. The warmth of the sun grew stronger, wrapping Eevee in a gentle embrace that coaxed a soft sense of renewal from within. The journey continued, not as a path toward a far-off goal, but as an ongoing experience of connection and peace. With the sky brightening and the day unfolding in all its quiet glory, Eevee rose once more, ready to move forward through the gentle landscape, calm, centered, and whole. As the first soft tendrils of dawn brushed gently across the horizon, Eevee stirred beneath the ancient tree where it had rested through the night. The cool air of the early morning carried with it a delicate freshness, a whisper of renewal that seemed to breathe life back into every leaf, every blade of grass, every stone scattered across the quiet field. Slowly, Eevee's eyes fluttered open, catching the gentle hues of pink and lavender spilling into the sky like an artist's brush caressing a blank canvas. The world was waking, and with it, a calm energy seeped into the air, subtle yet unmistakable. Eevee rose, its paws pressing softly into the dew-kissed earth, each step careful and unhurried, as if honoring the serene moment of rebirth that surrounded it. The familiar landscape looked different bathed in this new light. Shadows from the night had softened and stretched, giving way to gentle warmth. The tree beneath which Eevee had slept stood tall, its silhouette framed by the emerging glow of day, a silent guardian witnessing the passage of time. Around Eevee, the field seemed to hum softly, the early stirrings of life beginning to weave their delicate dance through the grasses and wildflowers. The breeze, light and cool, swept across the open land, carrying the scents of fresh earth and blooming flora. As Eevee moved forward, it noticed small signs of morning activity, the faint rustle of leaves as a bird took flight, the slow awakening of insects hidden within the grass, and the shimmering dance of dewdrops catching the first rays of sunlight. Everything felt tender and new, as though the entire world was taking its first breath after a deep slumber. Eevee paused for a moment to drink in the tranquility, its heart beating in rhythm with the soft pulse of the waking day. Ahead, the hills rose gently, inviting Eevee onward with their soft slopes and sunlit curves. The path through the tall grasses was undefined, leaving freedom to wander and explore, without haste or pressure. With each step, the warmth of the sun grew, brushing against Eevee's fur and filling its being with a quiet joy. There was no destination in mind, only the unfolding journey itself, a gradual discovery of self and surroundings wrapped in the gentle embrace of morning's light. As the sun climbed higher, the sky opened wide, a vast expanse of soft blue stretching endlessly above. Clouds floated lazily, their edges tinged with gold, drifting without hurry or care. Eevee's gaze lifted toward the heavens, feeling both small and infinite within this grand, unfolding scene. The world was alive, breathing, moving, yet everything was bathed in a peaceful stillness that invited reflection and ease. It was a moment to be fully present, to savor the gentle cadence of life's quiet rhythm. Continuing along the gentle rise, Eevee found itself at the edge of a quiet stream, its waters clear and cool as they traced a shimmering line through the valley. The sunlight danced upon the surface, sending flickers of light to play upon the stones beneath. Eevee lowered its head to drink, the water refreshing and pure, a balm to its spirit. After the long night's rest, the soft murmur of the stream added to the morning's serene soundtrack, blending seamlessly with the whispers of the breeze and the distant calls of awakening birds. After quenching its thirst, Eevee settled nearby, its body curling into a relaxed shape as it absorbed the peaceful energy around it. Time seemed to stretch and fold, becoming less about hours and minutes and more about feeling and presence. In this tranquil space, there was no need to rush or strive, only to exist and be, to listen to the world's quiet song and to find comfort in its steady flow. The warmth of the sun grew stronger, wrapping Eevee in a gentle embrace that coaxed a soft sense of renewal from within. The journey continued, not as a path toward a far-off goal, but as an ongoing experience of connection and peace. With the sky brightening and the day unfolding in all its quiet glory, Eevee rose once more, ready to move forward through the gentle landscape, calm, centered, and whole. As the soft hues of evening deepened around Eevee, the air took on a cooler, sweeter scent. The river, now closed beneath the hill, whispered quietly over smooth stones, a gentle song that blended with the rustling grasses and the distant calls of night creatures awakening. Eevee moved slowly down the slope, its paws barely making a sound on the earth, mindful and serene, as though each step were a prayer of gratitude offered to the vastness surrounding it. The fading light painted the sky in strokes of violet and deep blue, scattered with the first stars that twinkled faintly above. Eevee's eyes, calm and steady, reflected that quiet sparkle, mirroring the peaceful glow of the coming night. The river's coolness brushed gently against its fur as Eevee reached the water's edge, where it paused to gaze into the shimmering surface. The reflection was soft and wavering, a perfect echo of the stillness within. Here, in the embrace of twilight, Eevee felt the journey converge. All the quiet steps, the whispered winds, the gentle hills and open fields, weaving together into a seamless tapestry of experience. The world around was both vast and intimate, filled with silent stories told by the stars overhead and the cool breath of the river. Eevee's heart was full, not with urgency or desire, but with a profound sense of peace, a gentle knowing that the path it had traveled was itself the gift. The night settled softly, wrapping the landscape in a velvet cloak of darkness, illuminated by the steady glow of moonlight. The breeze carried a cool whisper, rustling the leaves and stirring the grasses, a lullaby sung by the earth itself. Eevee lay down at the riverbank, the soft earth cushioning its body, the sounds of the night surrounding it like a tender embrace. In the stillness, there was no need for words or movement. There was only the quiet pulse of life, steady, gentle, eternal. And as the moon rose high, casting silver light over the sleeping land, Eevee closed its eyes, sinking deeply into rest, wrapped in the serene silence of the night, calm and safe, ready to dream. The night had fully embraced the world now, draping the landscape in soft shadows and the gentle glow of countless stars. The air was cool and still, filled with the subtle scent of earth and leaves, a quiet reminder of the day's journey and the promise of tomorrow's dawn. Beneath this vast sky, Eevee lay peacefully by the riverbank, its breath slow and steady, its body curled softly against the warm earth. The silence here was not empty. It was full of life, of stories whispered by the wind, carried by the flowing water, and held deep within the quiet heart of the night. As the moon sailed high overhead, casting silver light across the landscape, Eevee's mind drifted in the calm between waking and dreaming. Memories of the journey floated gently through its thoughts. The shaded forests where light danced between leaves, the quiet glades bathed in soft glow, the vast open fields stretching endlessly beneath the sky, and the ancient tree standing steadfast through time. Each place had offered its own kind of peace, its own lesson whispered softly in the language of the earth. There was no hurry now, no destination to reach, only the gentle unfolding of time, a slow and steady breath shared with the world. In this moment, Eevee understood something simple and profound, that the journey was never about the places traveled or the steps taken, but about the quiet space held between, the stillness that carried us home. It was in the pauses, the gentle rests, the moments of simply being that the heart found its true rhythm. The stars above twinkled softly, as if nodding in agreement, and the river sang its soothing song, a melody of continuity and calm. The wind, now a tender murmur, brushed past Eevee's fur, carrying with it the scent of new beginnings and the endless cycle of night and day. Wrapped in this embrace, Eevee's eyes closed completely, surrendering to the peaceful darkness with trust and grace. In sleep, there is a world where dreams are, woven from the threads of light and shadow, where the heart whispers truths too quiet for waking ears. And in that world, Eevee floated gently, carried by the soft currents of night, cradled by the endless sky, and held safe by the quiet earth beneath. The journey continued there, not in hurried steps or loud moments, but in the deep, timeless flow of calm and peace. And so, under the watchful gaze of the stars and the soft glow of the moon, Eevee rested, calm, whole, and free, wrapped in the tender stillness of the night, ready to greet whatever the dawn would bring.